Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting Secrets of Eventide stream. I am Jason Bullman. I'm the creator of the Eventide setting and the, I had a little something to do with the Pathfinder role-playing game as well. Today, as is our tradition, I'm going to start looking into some more secrets, some more hidden lore, some more new and exciting things that are already in this setting. That I'm looking forward to explore here in the near future. My players are currently, my playtest is still in part 2 of the adventure. Frankly, the summer heat and convention schedules has made it very difficult for me to make good progress, and I know that's pretty frustrating. It's frustrating for me. I'm sure it's frustrating for all of you as well. Sorry, I'm really hoping that the fall really allows me to get back on track with the adventure and getting the player's guide and the GM's guide out to all of you. So what I'm talking about here today is stuff that's in the GM's guide. I actually already have it written. It's not yet on the website because I'm still polishing some stuff and working on some details. But it is coming together nicely. And my players are getting closer and closer to being able to explore this content. When they do finally leave Wormbone behind in part 3 of the adventure, they will be traveling through some of this stuff, and we'll brush up against some of these mysteries, some of these lore pieces, but not all of them. As a matter of fact, most of what I'm going to be talking about today has nothing to do with Wolfren's fate at all, because it's stuff that I'm seeding for the future, and stuff that, frankly, I will probably never do anything with. It's there for all of you, right? It's there for other folks to make stories about, which I'm excited about. So let's dig in to the Icescar Valley. Now, to get started, let's go ahead and take a look at the map here. So this is the Icescar Valley. Obviously, you got Wormbone there in the center. The Gemwood kind of surrounds it. As far as other major communities go, the second largest community is Red Thistle out to the east. You can see that kind of on the other end of the Gemwood. You also then have the Free Farms, which is another decent-sized community. It's about half the size of Red Thistle, though. And Red Thistle, by the way, is dwarfed by Wormbone, right? Red Thistle has, maybe 1,000 inhabitants. Wormbone has more like 15,000. And the Free Farms probably only has a few hundred. But then you get to someplace like, Endvale, which is over in the Rotting Peaks there to the east. That tiny community has maybe 100 people in it. And then you get even smaller, right? You get to Anvil Stump, which has maybe 50, and Riverbridge Inn, which has like 20 people as permanent residents. But there's normally more people there all the time. So, what I'm going to do here today is I want to walk around some of the places and talk about some of the bigger secrets. And some of them even aren't on that map, because some of them are really small little locations. So I do want to kind of chat about some of these places, what mysteries they might hold, and frankly, talk pretty openly and honestly about what's actually there. Because, to tell the truth, in some cases, what I'm about to say is all that there is currently on this. There's not a bigger grand scheme for these. Some things I do intend to do something about, other things I probably don't. So let's start with one of the things I am planning on doing something about sometime in the future, and that is Anvil Stump and Rime Shield. So you're going to see these up on the north there. Anvil Stump is kind of in the foothills, and Rime Shield is up in the mountains. So the history of this place is that many years ago, and I'm actually going to look at my text here, Rime Shield. So, about 1,200, 1,300 years ago, Rime Shield was a thriving dwarven mine and fortress. There were elves in the valley and there were dwarves in the valley. The dwarves arrived after the elves, after the end of the Kin Blood Wars, or the Kin Wars. In the Fragile Peace, the dwarves were allowed to settle in any mountains that they deemed of, mineral value. So some dwarves came up here, surveyed the area, and identified some areas up in the Blue Claw Mountains that they saw a value, and they started mining in that area and formed a fortress called Rimeshield. All dwarven settlements are named after some famous item, and it's usually an item that's crafted there. So Rimeshield is named for a shield called the Rimeshield that was crafted by the people who settled this place. Not perhaps as legendary or as powerful as, say, Flametongue or Skyhammer, but it is nonetheless a powerful magic item. And the dwarves were digging, doing their things. You know, they discovered like an underground lake. There's deep, rich veins of ore, a lot of silver, and they woke something up. And it wasn't in the mountain. It was actually in the valleys nearby. In their digging and kind of warming up the whole place, they apparently disturbed serpents of some sort, ice serpents, and these ice serpents overran their entire fortress within a month. And the dwarves ended up having to flee. They fled this place and went to at that time Ilsanvenir, warning no one should ever go there, lest they disturb these serpents again. They are hoping and praying that they go back into their long hibernation, because in the winter months they could come down from the mountains and it would spell doom for everyone. So to this day, because of the height and elevation of Rimeshield, there are still frozen corpses underneath the ice up on that mountain. Dwarves with, you know, grimaces of fear and terror and pain on their faces, frozen underneath the ice up in the fortress of Rimeshield. In the recent past, a number of dwarves have come and founded the small community of Anvil Stump. That's what Anvil Stump is. Anvil Stump is recent. So Anvil Stump is a tiny little community that is, let's see, headed by Dunwar Lockforge. He has a map that was passed down to him from his family that shows the general layout of the mines, including where there are some shafts lower in the mine that reach the surface. So he has maps and ways that he could get in and explore this place, you know, fully. And, but he is intent upon vengeance on these ice serpents. And in fact, may even go so far as to wake them up so that he can see to their destruction. Of course, this is not a great idea. So there is this waiting plot line there of this vast dwarven mine, ice serpents that are now probably infesting it. There's probably undead, because the dwarves died in nightmarish fear. And to top it off, somewhere in there is this legendary shield called Rimeshield. So it's a location that the adventure writes itself, right? We've got a dwarf who's intent upon getting vengeance against these foes. You've got a mine filled with danger, and you know, the dwarves probably set up traps and stuff to try and fight the serpents, some of which got into the mines, right? You know, there's so much potential here that I think at some point in the future it feels like a higher level adventure. Not super high level, but like 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there is a good place to put a an adventure set in Rimeshield with like a complex mind map and all the stuff that goes with it. So that's a thing that I'm seeding for the future that I'm probably going to do something. But there are other interesting things. Let's move on from Anvil Stump and Rimeshield. Let's talk about Cyclops Mountain and the weird mystery there. So Cyclops Mountain, you can see in the far east there, it's the mountain with the kind of hole in the middle of it. That's because it has a hole in the middle of it. It's at the top of the mountain near the peak. There is a perfectly round hole cut straight through the mountain. It's oftentimes used as a roost or nest for various creatures. I believe gargoyles live there right now, roosting in there. But there is something really weird about it, that once per year, the sun lines up just right at one time of day to shine directly through the hole. and land in the valley below. What's it looking at? What's it pointing at? No one's quite sure. The past, for as long as anyone can remember, whenever that day hits, it's been cloudy or raining, or they haven't been able to see. But they're pretty sure that, like, the sun gets closer and closer and closer, then the weather gets bad and no one can tell what it's looking at. It's almost as if there's some sort of magic going on preventing it from happening. So there's definitely something interesting going on there. What's it point at? What's the Cyclops Mountain looking at? I don't know. I literally don't know. Getting up there is no simple task. So, you know, there might be an adventure there where you have to go up to the mountain, climb into it, and as the sun hits, you know, maybe there's some ritual you have to do to get the clouds to part or something that would illuminate where it is pointing at. And then you have to get there, right? You know, so I think there's something fun here. I don't know what it is. No one knows who made it. I don't have anything in my notes about who made it. It's just a weird, mysterious thing that is placed in the GM's Gazetteer for folks to play with. So yeah. Let's talk about the Doomsday Cult in Endvale. So over in Endvale, this is not far away from Cyclops Mountain. You've got this small valley, and in this valley there are a whole bunch of elves, and these elves wear masks that cover half their face. And I don't mean like this, I mean like this, right? So they have these strange masks that are made of obsidian, that look like their features. It's like a reflection of one half their face. But what's under there? I don't know. I see there's a question about how big the hole is in Cyclops Mountain. It's like 50 feet wide. 50-foot wide circle. It's big. It's big enough that people can see it from a distance. Like, you don't have to be up on the mountain to see it. So the weird elves of Endvale believe that Eventide was the midpoint of the world, and the world is now sliding into darkness. These are some of the few elves who can trace their lineage all the way back to Ilsanvenir. So they've been here a long time. And they are kind of strange doomsday cultists. And they believe that in the end, the world will be swept away into darkness and reborn anew, and that they are, you know, living in those end times. And they don't know when the end's going to be, because they don't know how long the first times were. But they know that they're on the process. Now, funny enough, in some ways, they're not entirely wrong, but they're completely... They're interpreting things based on half-baked facts and notions. They don't actually know what's going on. So they spend their time, meditating on Oblivion and preparing for the end. I'm going to grab my notes here. So I've got a bit of a story bit about one of them wandering into Wormbone, unable to speak, covered in dried blood, and taken to Yurla at the Foot of Mercy. And she doesn't speak. So there is one of these cultists in town that is malnourished, but it was covered in someone else's blood. And so there's something going on here. What is going on? Who knows? But they do have a lot of texts and information about Eventide because they've been collecting it. So, I think the story may touch on these folks eventually. I don't know to what end that is, but they do have knowledge that might be useful to folks trying to look into Eventide. I mean, you know, there's a question of, were they normal folks before Eventide? Yeah, they were elves, and just after it, they saw it as a premonition of doom. So, but the only way you're going to get access to all of their strange old texts about things and their firsthand accounts of Eventide, well, not firsthand, more like secondhand, um, is to, kind of, you're going to have to work with them, right? So they probably have tasks and things you need to accomplish before they allow you to access their work. Because they're not going to let others see their stuff. So this weird doomsday cult, I think I'll probably meddle with them at some point in time, but who knows? Who knows? Let's see. Next up, oh, I want to talk about the free farms. Yeah, the free farms are a bunch of weirdos. All right, so the free farms are in the shadow of Hook Peak, and this place is the kind of 100% stereotypical kind of insular farm community that don't like outsiders, that have their own weird customs and rituals, that, are frankly creepy and, don't treat well with others. They don't like being put underneath anyone else's rule or law. That's why they're called the free farms. They are off the road that the Blue Banners patrol, and are steadfastly denying any sort of rulership by Wormbone. They don't follow any of Wormbone's rules. They don't trade with anyone. They're an insular little community of distrustful folk. And they're constantly living in fear that Wormbone's going to try and annex them or bring them to heel. But other than maybe an attempt that happened decades ago, to get them to participate in commerce and trade and something that was probably relatively innocent, Wormbone has no interest in screwing around with these folks. They're too remote. They're too, frankly, weird, and they are more trouble than it's worth. Because if anybody comes riding up under the Blue Banners, they get shot at by crossbows. Now, what is going on here, though, is that there's a cult. Surprise, surprise. There's a cult here dedicated to Sylvex. Sylvex is the evil deity, and this cult is hiding. It's not openly proclaiming that it worships Sylvex. It is instead asking the people to pay homage to the white mammoth, a frozen beast that lives up in the mountains, that they say will protect their followers from the endless cold if they make the right sacrifices. So let's see. The leader of this sect, Telpria Fex, has everyone convinced that the town of Wormbone is planning on moving against them, and that by only turning to the white mammoth can they possibly find salvation. With winter coming, the sacrifices are soon to begin. So this is a creepy, insular, cultish community. And most of the people are just going along with it because that's in their nature. But at the heart of it, there is a weird cult. I don't know that I'm going to do anything with this. I think the players may end up visiting at some point in time and interacting with the weirdness. It's not going to be part of Wolfren's fate. But it is kind of a fun little place. I may kind of leave it alone and let other folks play with it if they want. Where's this cult going? What's this cult doing? I don't know, but it ain't good. That's all I know. It ain't good. So yeah, there is that. So I don't know. I'm trying to walk a fine line with these folks. I don't want them to come off entirely as kind of like hill folk, right? There's something there that isn't quite what I want to hit, but it is pretty close. Like, I'm looking for those kind of, I guess, dirty, grimy, old, cranky peasant folks living in the shadow of a mountain, and they don't like outsiders, right? So yeah, I think, they don't know it, but they're being tricked into worshiping an evil deity. And there is this, there's this symbolism of a white frozen mammoth, that is actually an aspect of Sylvex, that they are paying homage to. So, that's the weird, creepy cultists. Now, while we're here, we should talk about Hook Peak, too, right? Because they live in the shadow of Hook Peak, right? So, Hook Peak is this mountain at the top of which, frankly, has a rather large hook on it that makes it kind of look like a bird from a distance. So, Hook Peak is the tallest mountain in the region. It's technically part of the Blue Claw Mountains. It just kind of stands alone. Honestly, I'm kind of inspired by local Mount Rainier on that. Mount Rainier is, you know, part of the Cascades, but it kind of stands by itself and is a large looming mountain in the distance. Mount Rainier. So Hook Peak is just a very, very tall mountain. It's so tall that you know, it's not like folks climb it, really at all. You know, and not with medieval climbing gear. They're breaking out their ropes and crampons, and that's about all they got. And they certainly don't have like Gore-Tex and things like that, right? So it gets pretty cold up there. The mountain is snow covered year round, and the thing that is weird about it is that below its peak, kind of underneath the hook, there's something made from like metal or polished stone underneath that. What is it? I don't know. I'll be honest. There appears to be, so in high summer, when the snow and ice upon the mountains are at their thinnest, there is some small building or tower nestled up near the peak, sheltered underneath a twisted hook of rock at the summit. Unfortunately, no one's been able to get up there. Now, what is this? I don't know. I haven't decided. It's a weird building, a weird structure, really high up on a mountain. So high that no one knows how it got there. Now, obviously, I think there's some easy answers here that it's like frost giants or something like that. You know, you can easily put some sort of large creature in there. It is a building that is visible from quite a distance, so it would kind of make sense if you got close to it that you realized it was much bigger than you thought, and people who live or lived there are ice giants, frost giants. So I definitely think there's something interesting there. It is up in the clouds frequently. Yeah, there are days when you cannot see the peak, and that's what it is. I don't know what the deal is here. I think giants, but, you know, could be a wizard. What could it be? Yeah, it could be a wizard. Wizards like to do that kind of stupid stuff. You know, so that is definitely a possibility. All right. Let's move on from Hook Peak. Let's talk about the Lost Spring. So this isn't on the map. You will not find it anywhere on there. It's somewhere in the Gemwood. But it's called the Lost Spring for a reason. Nobody knows where it is. And it is an elven legend that it is a spring of the purest water, and anyone who submerges in it will be cured of any malady. It's a rejuvenating spring kind of mystery. And that it exists somewhere in the heart of the Gemwood. However, there is an aspect of this myth that says it has a terrible and powerful immortal guardian that can transform into a terrifying beast and command the forest itself to destroy those who dare to draw near this sacred place. I don't have a specific answer to this. It may just be a myth or a legend. It may also be a place that still has a touch of primal magic. Because remember, primal magic is gone from the world from everyday usage, but it's not entirely vanished. It can still exist in places. No one just knows where those are, and this may be one of them. So I may do something with this at some point in time, because I do think that there is part of the greater mystery is like, well, this magic did exist. Is it all gone, or is it just almost entirely gone? And this might be one of the few tiny spots where primal magic still exists. So, what's there? Is this immortal guardian a druid? Could be. Could be. I don't know, though. And I'm still trying to decide how that all is coming together. So, this is kind of an area where we're talking about the deep, deep, deep secrets of the world. That primal magic does still exist in some pretty rare locations, and this might be one of them. So whether or not the players ever get there, whether or not this is ever part of a big story, I mean, it could be. It depends on how the whole mystery unfolds. You know, finding it would be a quest into and of itself, because it either moves or is hidden by magic in some way, shape. All right. So next up, let's talk about Mudfen. Mudfen. Kobold home, Mudfen. All right, so Mudfen's down there on the south of the Ice Fog Lake. It's actually a pretty populated area, and, you know, if you counted it like a city, it would be second only to Wormbone, probably. But it's all kobolds. So it is a very large kobold tribe that lives down here, and they live in clay mounds. So throughout this kind of muddy swamp, there are these big kind of clay mounds that the kobolds have built, and they built tunnels between them, and it's kind of a big maze of tunnels and these warrens. There are rare plants that grow in this swamp that alchemists and healers oftentimes call for. So the people of Wormbone trade with the kobolds with some frequency. But the tribe, the large kobold tribe, has a pretty complicated political structure, with major portions of the family vying for power and dominance, and slights can lead to ritual combat and blood feuds, and so dealing with the kobolds of the Mudfen is a tricky widget into and of itself. The current governing family is called Sidarzim, and their matriarch, let's see, Gravsa, who is a berserker, is intent upon, quote, waking the elder, and looking for rare salts and blue moss that grows on ancient standing stones throughout the region. And what she wants to do with this is not particularly known, but whatever the elder is, it's probably not good for folks in the Icescar Valley. That's all I have on this. What is it? I don't know. I actually originally intended to write, one of the first adventures was going to be set here. I was going to have a little one-shot adventure that was just like, go out to the Mudfens, deal with the kobolds, and get some stuff for an alchemist. I will probably do that adventure, actually, after Wolfren's Fate. It's a low-level adventure. It's kobolds, so I don't want it to be a high-level adventure. But I do think you could have a fun couple of sessions out dealing with the kobolds, either, you know, fighting for some of them, fighting with some of them, doing errands for them, dealing with, you know, whatever strange things are going on there, all in an attempt to get some rare herbs that only they have, that an alchemist needs, right? So you're basically an errand. You're running an errand, but it could be a fun little adventure. I think that having a low-level adventure where you deal with, you know, massive amounts of kobolds and dealing with the politics of the kobolds could be an awful lot of fun. So that's the Mudfen. Let's see, what else we got? Let's talk about the ruins of Summerglen. It's an interesting place. So Summerglen is in the northern kind of reach of the Gemwood. It is fortunately far enough away that it has not caused any problems for the people of Wormbone, and its magic is keeping things in check, because Summerglen is a mess. It's bad. Summerglen. So Summerglen used to be a elven kind of spa, right? A place of contemplation where they could go and rest and take their ease in the kind of cool northern reaches of the forest, in these kind of marble buildings, all, you know, crafted in the elven style. And after Eventide, they needed a place where the elves of Ilsanvenir wanted to investigate what happened. And they, they didn't want to do it in Ilsamvenir because some of the experiments and some of the things that they were thinking about were dangerous. And so they kind of used Summerglen as a place to perform their research. Things went poorly. They were, doing, experiments and investigations using all sorts of magics. And they were also doing summonings. And this is where things went wrong, because this was one of the first places where a very powerful summoning went awry. And the creature, when the summoning was over, didn't go home. As I've talked about in previous videos, there is a thing with summoning magic where sometimes it doesn't send creatures home. It will bring them here, but then it doesn't send them back. And in Summerglen, this happened, but with, like, a powerful demon. So fiends, and this demon was then able to summon more fiends, some of which don't go home. So over time, the entire place, Summerglen, has been overrun with demons. Fortunately, the elves had the foresight of putting up one last barrier around the place before they started their experiments that was like, let's just make sure nothing can get out. So, Summerglen is a demon-haunted ruin, and also probably filled with undead elves that serve the demons and things like that. So, it's a mess. This is definitely a high-level adventure location. This is a place you don't send low-level characters because they will get murdered. So, that said, there are people who sometimes visit here in an attempt, to bargain with a demon or something to try and get favors and stuff. It's a place where cultists might sometimes visit. So it is a dangerous place, and definitely a place for adventure. Not one that I have a specific use for, though. I don't have a big idea for it. I will say this: the journey from Wormbone to Red Thistle goes nowhere near Summerglen, but it will go near similar elven ruins because the Gemwood is filled with ancient kind of elven ruins. Summerglen is the most famous of them, but there are smaller ones here and there, small communities and other homes and things like that, where the elves once lived. Tiger, I'm gonna save that question for the end here. I'm gonna get through this last one, then we'll open it up to some. So Summerglen is a high-level adventure place. Folks can use it as they see fit. Next up, we got the Windwood. The Windwood is to the south of the Gemwood, close to the foothills of the Rotten Peaks. So you can see it. It's north of the Rotten Peaks. It is kind of a larger forest. It's due east of Icefog Lake. It's not labeled on here, but that is the Windwood. So the Windwood has one particular part of it that someone has gone through all of the trees. Someone or something has gone through the trees and bored holes through it, so that when the wind comes from a certain angle, it makes these kind of haunting tunes that kind of carry through the forest. Yeah, somebody either twisted their trunks or branches. Some of these holes are natural, like they're not drilled. It's like someone carefully, I'm sure you've seen it before, but folks who take young saplings and twist their branches in such a way to kind of make lattices. This is a similar thing here, but it makes music when the air comes through it. And as they've continued to grow, it kind of is now turning into this haunting kind of melody that as the wind blows through these trees, it can be heard from miles around. Now, in the center of this is the mystery, and that is where the music is strongest, where you can hear it from all sides. And there is an altar. A stone altar is in the center of this place. And the top of it has been scored many times by what looks like a heavy blade. And the stone itself looks rather crusted and old. So anyone who's seen it gets the strong feeling that it's been used for sacrifices of some sort. And around the base of it, weird kind of black-capped mushrooms grow. And as of late, the mystery here is that someone has been collecting these mushrooms and leaving offerings of fresh meat atop the altar. What's the deal there? I don't know. There's weird stuff happening. What's going on there? I have no idea. Who built it? Don't know. What's the purpose? Don't know. But it's weird and creepy. And I think there's definitely an adventure to be had here. I just don't know what it is. Again, this is one of those things that just kind of gets seeded out there and is something present for folks to play with. You know, like so many of these other places. Now, there's tons of other locations here as well. Those are the ones with the biggest kind of mysteries. You know, there are others that have small, interesting adventure hooks. Like if you visit the River Bridge Inn and talk to the bridge keeper, the owner. He calls himself bridge keeper, not innkeeper. He has this outlandish tale about when he was in the hills, he slept, you know, underneath an overhang of rock, and in the moonlight, the wall began to emit a faint light, and he noticed that there were tiny pieces of quartz specifically embedded into the wall, but they began to glow in the moonlight, and it formed a constellation not seen in the heavens above. And, you know, for the rest of that evening, he dreamt of untold treasure, but on the next morning, he saw no sign of the symbol. Later that night, when he rejoined his people that he got lost from, he found a strange bronze coin in his pocket with a similar jewel marking on it. And he's never been able to find it again, and he has the coin, and we'll show it to you. What's that? I don't know. Lost deity? Shrine to a lost deity? Probably. So what's the deal with the treasure there? Don't know. How did it end up in his pocket? Don't know. You know, some of this stuff is this entire section is just filled with possible adventures. There's, you know, the Pine Spire, which is a large tree that looks like it has people living in it, but it's surrounded by a thicket that is a maze that no one can seem to get through. There's just things everywhere. There's weird weird fish coming out of the Ice Fog Lake. Where was the other one? There's another lake right outside Red Thistle. Yeah, Blue Bottom, where there is some strange glow coming from the bottom of the lake that no one can identify. You know, Ashen Barrows out to the far east, where that carries sickness for any who stay there too long. You know, a lot of this stuff is just there to be a hook for later. And, you know, maybe one day I'll do something with it, maybe not. Maybe it'll just be an adventure hook for all of you to play with. You know, I wanted to make sure, one of my goals with this was to make sure I gave myself stuff to play with, but also to make sure the GMs playing and running this setting at home have tons of stuff that they can just pick up and do what they want with. And frankly, I will probably mark them as, you know, this will not be developed in official products, so if you want to do something with it, you can, and it's fine, whatever you do. Because I do want folks to kind of have an understanding of, hey, this, you know, this is a free play area, do whatever you want with it as a GM, and you don't have to worry about me coming along being like, nope, it's actually this, and then you having to retcon your game in your setting. So some of this material I'm hoping to get up kind of more in detail to all of you here soon. Obviously, the Player's Gazetteer has basic kind of information about some of these places, but it's really basic, and it doesn't include secrets and mysteries, because they're secrets and mysteries. So we did see a question from earlier. If anybody else has any other questions, I'll open it up for a few minutes of questions here. But one question was, when we were talking about Summer Glen and the fact that there were undead there, there was a question about Raise Dead and whether or not Raise Dead and Resurrection spells work in the setting. We talked about this a bit in the magic of the setting thing, and a bit about it in the planar cosmology thing. But they do currently work most of the time. And every once in a while, you might get brought back, and those who get brought back end up kind of disjointed, and they end up having to take an archetype to represent the fact that their soul and their body isn't quite joined together. They have to take this archetype. The dedication feat is free. It doesn't bar them from taking any other archetypes, but it does come with some penalties and drawbacks that you can buy off by taking archetypes. So that's kind of an interesting thing in Eventide, is that there can be mandatory archetypes that you are forced to take. And I will say this, although I won't give away any details, that is not the only one. There is at least one more. Yeah, you know, I actually, I think as the person creating this, the comment here was, about marking something as something that won't be developed is a good idea. And I actually wish more settings would do this, would say, this is a thing I'm not touching. This is a thing I'm not going to write anything for. In this case, what I'll probably do is note specifically what is going to have something written for it. And then anything that doesn't have that designation is kind of free play. Especially when it comes to these mysteries and plot hooks around the region. They're there to be something you can do something with. And even if I do something with it, that doesn't mean that you can't. It's just you may have to tread carefully, right? You know, if you have some other adventure with the Kobolds of the Mudfen, it's probably still going to work, right? But what I'm getting at is if you want to do something with Rhyme Shield, there's a decent chance that whatever you do might be different than what I have envisioned. Now, obviously, I'm going at my pace, which, you know, I got a full-time job. The Patreon helps me pay art and editing costs, and things of that nature. But it's not enough for me to support myself full-time. So, as a result, I only get to work on this, 10 to 15 hours a week, and some of that's taken up with playtesting. So, as a result, this is kind of coming out at a slow isn't the right term for the pace, but it's definitely measured, right? There's only so much I can get done. I am expecting to see the final manuscript, by the way, for Wolfren's Fate, here in the next few days. So that is going to lead me into the rapid process of laying it out and getting it ready for all of you, which means September might finally be the month where this thing comes out. I really wanted to get it out last month, but it just did not happen. But I am also going to have to do printer proofs of it, so we're not there yet, but I'm hoping to be able to get the layout done here relatively soon. So that's kind of all the news I have for right now. I have had more playtest sessions here over this past week. In fact, I did get in both of my playtest sessions despite the heat. I didn't get to stream on Tuesday because it was just too hot. But I did get in both of my playtest sessions. So, the adventure is unfolding. I'll be talking more about that this coming Tuesday. That'll be our next stream. Join me this Tuesday. We'll be talking about the progress through the mystery and how the players are getting closer and closer to the Eventide celebration. Most of them are now kind of at the end of their first day of exploration, having visited a whole bunch of spots. And they're starting to get closer to pulling this mystery together. I still think they got a ways to go, but, they're working on it. So, I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you for hanging out. I got to wrap this thing up so that I can get ready for my next stream here in just a bit. So, thank you all for watching. Thank you for all of your support. It really does mean a lot to me. I know things have been a little slow here lately, but I promise they're going to pick up here in the fall as weather allows me to do more work. So, thank you for watching, everybody, and we will see you next time.